Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life. Can wipe the glisten off for a second.
You're spitzing.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, everybody. On this episode, I've got my longtime close friend and former partner on the Chicago Police Department, Vince Jamison. Vince and I have worked together, been friends. We've trained martial arts together. We've gone to shooting schools together. We've done a bunch of this stuff. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation, mainly just because I like catching up with my guys. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Vince?
Well, Vince Jamison went to the Benning School for Boys in August of 1986. For those of you who don't know, that's the infantry school down at Fort Benning, Georgia. After basic training, went out to the 25th ID for 4 years. While I was with the 25th, was a machine gunner. Well, started off as a basic rifleman, became a saw gunner because I was a private E2 and the E3s and E4s weren't carrying it. So I got the saw. Then I became a 60 gunner. Then after that, I became an RTO. Then my platoon sergeant, who was a Vietnam vet, he went off to the scout platoon. I followed him over. From there, I went to the 25th ID's RIP program, which is Ranger Indoctrination Program. Ranger school from there, Air Assault school from there. Went to Benning for a year and a half as an instructor at the Infantry Officers Basic Course. Delta Company was on jump status down there because they were trying to attract a higher caliber of NCOs. So they were reaching out to the RIP program and to guys who were looking to leave some of the other units who were Ranger qualified and stuff like that to be some of the sergeants to assist the captain that was running all the platoons. Then went back to the 25th ID for 3 more years, got out in 95, did alarms, became a cop in 2001, retired in 2021, worked various jobs with the police department, tactical training unit, not the tactical training unit, but the targeted response unit, worked gangs, Area 5 robbery mission with the detectives, firearms training unit where I bounced around in there from recruit training to the carbine program, in-service training, back to recruit training. Left the department, was working for Staccato for about 18, 19 months. You hooked me up with that job where I was business development manager for the Midwest and got to shoot me some 2011s. That was a whole lot of fun. Got to travel the country, meet some nice people, made some friends. And now I'm back working as a civilian with the Chicago Police Department's firearms training unit. Here we are.
Well, you kind of glossed over one important detail, I think, about the carbine program, in that you created the carbine program.
Well, yeah, I kind of did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you wrote the POI and you got that ball rolling. So, and you took over the Red Dot program for me when I'd retired and helped get Red Dots approved.
You started the Red Dot program for SWAT, and I started the Red Dot program for patrol. Ironically, the Red Dot program that I started didn't get approved until maybe a year after I'd retired. So yeah,
which makes it
4 years.
Which makes it like 3 years after I retired, but we started together.
Yeah. So first initial thing I put in for the Red Dot program was after Scott Jetlinski class in 2017. And because I was like, okay, I'm getting older and shooting on indoor ranges, shooting those matches up in McHenry at Alpha. And I'm shooting production. And all of a sudden, one day, I just couldn't pick up my front sight, the fiber optic on my front sight. So it was like, what the hell is going on? Went to an eye doctor, got glasses. Still, it's just old eyes and low light. So that's when I decided I was going to go red dot full time with all of my practice, all of my training. Yes, I was a cop and I still had to run iron sights, which was hell. Iron sights is, at this point in the game for me, is kind of like shaking hands with an old friend. But the red dot, I made sure I jumped into that because getting older, your eyes aren't getting better.
There's nothing wrong with irons, but this is something you'll appreciate because you and I are both like inner geeks at heart. We're both like science fiction and fantasy nerds when you get right down to it. Remember when the young Obi-Wan has to shoot somebody with a blaster in the prequels?
Yeah.
And when he's done, he tosses it down and he goes, so uncivilized.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about irons. There's nothing wrong with them. They work. Yeah. It's like revolvers. Revolvers work.
Yeah. Revolvers are fantastic.
It's just older technology, that's all.
Yeah, I just recently went out and bought myself Smith & Wesson 686, 357. And I'm like, this will be a great accompaniment to my lever action. Because I have a Henry Big Boy chambered in 357. Now I've got my revolver chambered in 357.
Oh, dude, I'm getting the Taurus Deputy from Caleb. The straight up single shot. I'm going to put some Wild Bill Hickok style pearl grips on it, get it coated up nice.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do
shoot.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. I'm going to see how fast I can do a Bill Joel fanning the hammer.
You know what, man? A few years back, me and some friends did a match, cops versus cowboys, and it was police officers versus cowboy action shooters. And I used to laugh at those dudes. I'm like, yeah, look at these nerds running around. Man, those dudes got some skills. We had to really push with semi-auto pistols, semi-auto shotguns to beat those dudes. And they were running, semi-auto pistols, semi-auto shotguns, semi-auto rifles against lever actions, pump actions, single action revolvers. And it came down to a man versus man shoot off. That's how close it was. And we beat them with a semi-auto shotgun. It was like, dude, we have to train for this because them single action shooters, they were off the chain.
Oh yeah, well they put the work in, and like that's something. You were around for my first forays into competition shooting. Like you were there for the matches, and we shot a lot of stuff together. Matter of fact, you started before I did. As a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember after our first USPSA match together, I was literally like crying under my whoopee, sucking my thumb. I was so unhappy with how I did.
Yeah, it's still better than my first foray in the USPSA because I'm figuring I'm ex-military. I'm a big city cop. I do enough shooting. I'm going to go out here and I should do pretty well. Yeah, well, I had some retiree general contractor named Elijah who literally came up to the starting line with his single action pistol. He's shooting limited. He came up to the start line lugging an oxygen tank. took a deep hit, took off the cannelier, and beep, and it was over after that. As soon as that beep went, that old man came to life, and it was like, whoa, I got to practice because I'm thinking I'm a meat eater out here, and I shouldn't even be sitting at the table. I should be at the kids' table right now.
Dude, I've heard you tell that story before. I've actually used that story in my classes.
Yeah, man.
I think I add in a walker. Did he have a walker?
Fortunately, he didn't have a walker because that would have just been a bit much. If he would have had a walker and did what he did, we wouldn't be having this conversation because I would have just decided to hang it up and just wander to Earth.
Well, Steel Challenge, that's entirely possible. You could wind up with some 120-year-old dude with a walker and an oxygen tank smoking you without a doubt.
I've seen it at the down in Havana, Illinois. They used to have a match down there called the Drazy 500. And we went down there to shoot the Steel Challenge match. And I'm sitting there and see this old man come walking up. It was a squad of old dudes. I swear they all looked like the Crypt Keeper. And they were all shooting limited and open. And old timer got his gun going, and me and my friends just sitting there looking, and it's like, shooter ready, stand by, beep, ding, 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 ding. And we were like, whoa, it shocked us so much that we flinched and we grabbed each other for support. It was like, what the hell just happened? And yeah, you see some of these old timers, these dudes with USPSA numbers that are like 3 digits. It's been shooting it since it started. Yeah, some of these old boys, the spirit may be willing, but the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak, but they can still get that gun out the holster and get down.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, let's just say that I'm accepted the fact that I'm no longer a young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like you know how all the samurai movies have the group samurai movies, like Seven Samurai, or, you know, what is it, 12 Assassins, you know, all the different ones about like the groups of samurai that come together. Yeah. Well, not so much with Jimbo, because that's about the one guy.
You're right.
It's the ones where it's like groups. They all have that one character, like every one of them is like an archetype, who's like old and a little frail, and he's like the old master, and he kind of walks around slow, you know. And then the sword comes out of the scabbard, and he's like a fucking Cuisinart, man, slicing and dicing.
And he gets dudes in one move.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I'm going for now, like the modern version of that. You know, I know I can't, like, I came up with a new drill and I just ran it the other day. And it's just, I mean, I have a lot of bionic parts. I have a lot of old injuries. I think I move well for someone of my seasoned experience level and medical background. Let's put it that way. But I know I can't run the drill I came up with the same way, like just physical running speed. I can't do it like I could have done if I'd come up with this in my 20s. It's just not possible, right?
Just think about 5 years ago.
But I can be efficient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can be efficient. I can have better and better technique. I can be better and better mentally, which counts for a lot when it comes to like martial endeavors, you know? And that's kind of what I'm focusing on now. It's like just staying in the best shape I can and trying to make gains in the areas I can still make gains in.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, just, you know, it's basically you're wringing out a dish rag. The last bit that you can get out of it for yourself, that's what you want. And that's what I've started doing lately myself, because every morning I wake up, I think about the things that hurt, and it's immediate. I know when I did that. I know when I did that. Oh yeah, that's when this happened. So yeah, that laundry list of injuries starts to add up after a while, because
and it's funny how
like Wolverine.
They don't bother you when they happen. Like you heal and they're fine. Like the knee I hurt in the Army, or like the ankle I hurt. Well, it's all the Army. But the knee, the ankle, the hips, the shoulders, like I know when it all happened. And at the time I just shrugged it off. I'm like, okay, I rehabbed, I'm good now, I'm better. But it's here's another geek reference. Here's another quote. Tolkien this time, when they're talking about Frodo and the dagger. So some wounds never heal.
Yeah. Like a lot of the injuries that we had when we were younger, we thought that we healed like Wolverine. We didn't. We just deferred it to later. And now we're doing things to correct the damage that we done. One of the things I started doing just lately is I got this Stello thing that I put on. I'm not diabetic, but at the point where it's like, okay, we're going to start monitoring everything we can.
Yes.
Because I'm making sure now that I get as much sleep as I possibly can at night. If I get 8 hours of sleep, it's because I had insomnia for a few days. On average, a good night of sleep for me is 6.5 hours. If I get 6.5 hours, I'm good to go.
You know, there's definitely a variance though. Like I know everybody talks about 8 hours. And I went through this period recently where I was doing kind of the same thing you're doing. I was making myself get 8 hours, and it was too much. Like it literally, like I would wake up groggy because I felt like I'd overslept, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think the converse is true when you get older. If you fall into that trap of not sleeping because you're older, you're not getting the rest and recovery your brain and your body need. So you got to find that balance, I think, you know?
Yeah. And I think a good balance was when I took a leave of absence from being a cop and went as a contractor as a embedded law enforcement advisor with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines back in 2010 and 2011. I looked at all of those Marines and I'm like, got a bunch of 19-year-olds laying around napping. Then I remembered when I was a 19-year-old, E2, E3. What did I do when we weren't doing stuff? I was laying around napping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that now. I take power naps all the time.
I'm going to start napping. Well, when I was basically working from my couch, I'd get in a nap during the afternoon. Just like, it's about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Go take my little siesta for about 45 minutes, and I'm good to go. When I actually retire, follow your example, where it's either I ain't going to a job or I'm just working for myself, then yeah, we're going to be doing a whole lot more stuff. And, lately I'm looking at sleep. I'm looking at health markers going forward for longevity. One of the things that they look for is grip strength, leg strength. So I'm putting on a weighted vest, walking back and forth in the alley doing fireman's carries. Because, we need to have grip strength and we need strong legs. The joints aren't what they used to be. So I'm not in there squatting and everything, but I'm still doing sandbag workouts, doing kettlebell stuff, just doing what I can with this busted up old body.
Yeah, I'm prioritizing mobility under load a lot lately. So a lot of end range type stuff. Like I'm not doing like pressing movements for the chest per se. It's all like fly style movements, and really emphasizing the end range, like really getting out to the farthest bit of the stretch under load. So like legs, I'm doing like Bulgarian split squats with 1 foot elevated on a bench, and like really getting that quad stretched out. And like for hamstrings, it's not even so much stiff leg deadlifts. It's what do they call it? That old time version where it's called a curl, where you actually allow your back to round on the way down.
Oh, yeah. Is it the Jefferson curl?
Yes, Jefferson curls. Yeah, I'm doing Jefferson curls. I'm doing I'll do straddle stiff leg deadlifts with standing on a bench, so I'm getting my hands like well below my feet. I'm really trying to like get strength in that end range, because especially with all the damage I've done to my joints, I think if I don't do that, I'm going to get stiffer and stiffer as I get older, and I don't want that. I want the mobility.
Yeah, Jefferson curl is one of the exercises that I just picked up. Another thing that I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to channel my inner Eastern European and just squat. And when I say squat, how you go over to some parts of Eastern Europe, you see guys just squat down, smoke a cigarette. Same thing in Asia. Yeah, that's what I just bought some rubber wedges that are stackable. So I take them with me to work. Just sit them down on the floor every hour and an hour.
Progressively lower your heels. Yep.
And just get down into that squat and just sit there. And once that squat's done, go down to one knee, sit all the way down on both knees like I'm sitting Seiza, and then come back up and do that every hour and an hour for about 5-10 minutes to loosen up those knees.
So look into Hindi squats too, like the Indian wrestlers do. And they used to do this in like Western weightlifting too, like back when it was like Sandow. Like back when it was like Sandow and those guys, like the really old school stuff, where it's like they called it a deep knee bend in the Western world. It's like a Hindi squat in India, where the heel comes all the way up and you put your heels to your butt and your legs are like parallel to the ground, both your shins and your thighs. And your back is upright. Yeah. So like those are really good too.
I used to do those years ago as a warm-up, oddly enough, when before I started working legs, I learned about the Hindu squats and the Hindu push-ups, where the dive bomber push-ups going in and back. Then I started doing those exercises called the Baitak, and you swing your arms as you do it. Yeah. As you squat down, you swing your arms, and that raises your heart rate. And it's a fantastic exercise for the knees. I don't know why I stopped doing those, but thank you for reminding me.
Another good one I like that I've been doing lately is Cossack squats.
Yeah.
So
not ready
so
for
like
those yet.
like how like the old martial arts stretches from like I know you've trained your whole life too, where one foot is totally flat on the ground and that is facing like out, the foot and the knee are facing out, almost like a sumo position.
Yeah.
But the other leg is straight. as far like out to the side as you can get it.
Yeah.
And then you go back and forth with one leg bent and the other leg bent. I've been doing those with a kettlebell, holding a kettlebell like a goblet squat position and doing those. And I like those a lot.
Yeah, that sounds, you know what? That sounds like a nice stretch. I've been doing other stretches like that too, like using the gymnast rings or a TRX and just hang and
Yep.
stretch out those muscles in my back because, yeah, I need that. Let's
Well,
see.
you know,
I got,
they've proven that just hanging from a bar or from a set of rings, just a dead hang, like no tension, no activation in the shoulder, a relaxed dead hang. If you can do a couple minutes a day of that, it will literally restructure your shoulder joints. Since so much of your shoulder joint is connective tissue, not bone and cartilage, you can actually increase the subacromial space just by hanging. So I've been trying to do that a lot too. Like every workout, I'll do that.
well, I wish we had emojis here so I could send them across the screen for that word you just used. I was like, ooh,
What, subacromial space?
yes.
That's the gap you're supposed to have in your shoulders that I didn't have anymore a couple years ago that I'm slowly getting back. Yeah.
Is that why you're familiar with that term?
Oh, yes. It was a doctor's diagnosis. Absolutely.
Duly
That was
noted.
when the VA, oh man, the VA has been so good to me in so many ways, but they're very surgery happy. Like, that like their performance, it's like being a cop and being judged by arrest.
Yeah.
It makes you want to make arrests all the time, whether it's really the right thing to do or not.
Right.
If you're not of strong moral character. So I think the VA docs kind of get judged the same way. Like they get judged by how many surgeries they perform. I'm just guessing. I
Yeah.
don't know for sure. But they're like, man, your shoulders are trash. We need to do 2 shoulder replacements on you. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. And they're like, well, the new in vogue technique we do is the reversal, where they put the ball on your torso and the socket is on your arm. And I'm like, so does this increase my range of motion? No, not really. Are there any contraindications after recovery? Yeah, you shouldn't lift more than 20 pounds. What does it do for me? Well, it helps with the pain. I'm like, doc, I could give 2 shits about the pain. I do not want,
pain.
Yeah, I don't care. I want range of motion and I want to be able to lift heavy things. Like I am not doing that. Like if they ever get it to where it's as good as the hips were, I'll do it. But not until then. It ain't happening.
Yeah, I've got issues with the medical profession. I've had issues with them for years because it's either we're going to cut you or give you dope.
Yeah.
What if I don't want either? How come we can't have another option? Well, we could do the physical therapy. Well, I'd rather try the physical therapy before I get cut into it. If it's something that I know I need to get cut into for, then yeah, let's do it. But if it's something where I can work up to it, let's try that first.
Well, and here's what annoys me, because I've gone the physical therapy route as much as the VA has let me, right? But you can't just get ongoing physical therapy.
No.
And that would be the solution I would want for some of my injuries. Just let me go to a physical therapist every week. Like, let me do that. Let me do the things that I can't do on my own with someone, that assisted stretching modalities and some of the things you need somebody kind of working with you to do. That would be better by far than drugs and surgery, as far as I'm concerned, I think.
I think a good opening for gyms in the future is to have a physical therapy place that's there. So if you're a member of the gym, you've got an injury or something, hey, we got physical therapy right there. So before you even do a workout, or just because you're a member in the gym, you can just go in there, hey, I've been having problems with this lift and this muscle back here stings. What should I do for that? Well, you got a therapist right there. That's already there that can help you. And also you can have therapists who are in the gym who are looking around. He's like, hey, you're doing deadlifts wrong. You're using that rowing machine wrong. That'd be nice.
That would be nice. That would absolutely be nice.
But what do I know?
I was just thinking you should market that idea to somebody and make yourself some FU money off of that.
I'm an idea man.
In all seriousness, I wish I knew 30 years ago what I know now about training for longevity, because I think I'd be in a much better place now. And I think it's gotten better in the 30 years. articulate this. It's like functional fitness in the military is now a thing, right? Like all the new PT
Yes.
tests and everything else. But from everybody I talk to, there's still
Oh, you kind of broke up there.
spots and went back up. All right, and we're going to add that out.
Okay.
You know, so I've been thinking about this because, like, if I had known what I know now about training for longevity 30 years ago, I'd be in so much better condition than I am now. Like, I wouldn't have anywhere near the nagging injuries and issues I have from the hard life I've lived, right? And it has gotten better. Like, functional fitness is like a thing in the military now, right? And it's definitely an improvement, but they're not really understanding what makes some of it work. It's like any other institutional training. You know what I mean? Everything gets kind of paid lip service and you check some boxes without really understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish. Am I making sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense because one, not everybody's on board with the program, and two, not everybody understands the program because you got people out there who only have so much bandwidth and they're trying to keep track of all the other stuff. And it's like, hey, dude, I'm responsible for 500 dudes, weapons, nods, all of this other stuff. We're going to delegate that to somebody else. So you'll have like the one officer in the unit who knows everything about it. And he's just getting burned up with questions by everybody else. And he's got his 2 or 3 subordinate NCOs that are well versed in it too. But there's a lot of things as far as health and longevity. Everybody should be on board with that. Young guys aren't because they think they're going to live forever and age gracefully, just like we did.
Well, I would argue that compared to many people that did the things we did, we have aged pretty gracefully, all things considered.
Yeah, that's true. Because I look at some of the people who are my age and it's like, wow, you look like a senior citizen. I just look like a guy who's too old to be in the club.
You know, I remember going to, remember that FBI agent that was my buddy, Jim McDaniel? I did the case with him on the Kings. Really good dude, right? Jim McDonald. Matter of fact, he worked with us on Marvin's team.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but either he just transferred or retired. I can't remember which.
Yeah, I kind of lost touch with him the last couple of years, which is a shame because I really like the guy. He's a solid dude, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah, he was. And every now and then you'd have to remind yourself that, hey, this guy's FBI. Because we're just street cops. We start talking like, man, just kick his door in. And he'd like start looking around like, wait, what? Like, we're kidding. We're kind of not. But.
So I went to a Christmas party at his condo back when he lived in the West Loop, the one right by the interstate there in the high rise. And there was a guy who was another FBI agent who'd been an officer in the regiment. And we were talking about injuries. And this is before any of my stuff had really hit me yet. You know what I mean? I was still Wolverine, because it didn't really hit me in my 50s. And then it just hit me and I was like, oh shit, all this stuff did really damage me back in the past.
Yeah, I asked you about that for years.
So we were talking and I can't remember this guy's name, but he seemed like a solid cat. And he goes, you know what terrifies me? And I'm like, no, what? He goes, the injury cascade. It's not the one injury that gets you old and fat and broken. It's when you have the one, and then before you can heal that one up, you get the second one, and then you get the third one, and you don't have a chance to recover from the first two. And before you know it, you're out of shape. And that conversation has stuck with me ever since. And like when the hip started to bother me, right? And then, things started to get a little crunchy in the joints. I remember that conversation, and that has been like kind of one of the guiding things in how I view the stuff as I get older. Like the biggest thing is staving off the injury cascade. You know what I mean? Like it's just don't let it become where you have so many issues going on at once. There's nothing you can do about it. And I see my teammates, some of them, and I see like guys I served with in SF and like, guys I've known forever that were in special operations. And some of these guys were just unbelievable studs when they were younger, just like, like almost superhuman, right? And now they're old and broken. And while I may have some bionic parts, and I may have some things I have to work around, and I'm certainly older. I don't ever want to just give up and allow myself to be old and broken, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm looking for like a wellness place. We're about to start testing everything. And the reason I'm
Oh
doing
yeah.
this is because my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, ended up in ICU with what the hell is it? He damn near went into a diabetic coma. Ketoacidosis. We don't have
Oh,
diabetes in my family, but for years, he's a photographer, he shoots videos. So for years, he would not eat he's like doing intermittent fasting without even knowing it. He would go all day without eating. And on the way home, it's like, you know what? I'm going to stop and get a burger and some fries and a drink. And he'd gorge himself, stay up till all hours of the night, wake up around noon, and start that whole process over again until one day he just dropped. He went to send a text message to my sister-in-law, who's a veterinarian. She's like checking him out. She's like, "You're not right. Just stay home, stay in bed." Thought he was sick, had a virus or something. And she texted him to check on him, and it came back gibberish. She called her sister, who's a medical doctor, is like, just go home and check his blood sugar. Had some keto sticks, had him pee on the stick, said his blood sugar was, I think the sticks went up to like 400 as far as measuring your insulin. He just destroyed that. They get him to the hospital. They kept him in there for like 2 days. Then they're giving him all of this stuff for diabetes treatment. And over the course of the last maybe month, his blood sugar is back down to normal and everything. So he'll eat and his blood sugar go up to like maybe 175, 180. Whereas before he would eat and it would go up to 220, 250 and come back down after he got out of the hospital. But now it's coming back to normal. And I told him within a year you could be back to normal, no diabetes, no meds, just eating naturally. So I went out and bought this thing and I've been testing it for the last couple of days to see what spikes my insulin, what doesn't. When I just eat low carb, like just meat, green leafy vegetables, I'm good. No insulin spikes. But as soon as I had a little bit of rice with some gumbo today just to see what would happen, blood sugar went up to about 155, stabilized, then it started coming back down. And I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. That means that I'm not pre-diabetic and I'm still good. But I still want to check my A1C and make sure I don't have all of this stuff because inflammation is a killer. And that's what really keeps these joints and injuries fired up is not dealing with the inflammation.
oh, absolutely. And they've done studies too. There's several very well-respected researchers and medical professionals that I've seen do studies that are concluding that both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are basically diabetes.
Type 3 diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. Like if that's valid, and I think it is, to be honest, like that kind of unlocks a key to keeping your brain young too. That's the other thing. Like, and I don't want the whole conversation to be about being old because we're still doing good. I don't want it to be too bad.
Right.
But I think this stuff is valuable. But you know what concerns me as much as physical aging is mental aging.
Yes.
And here I think is the key, right? Like you got to maintain that neuroplasticity, right? And the brain is like a muscle. It only works if you use it. How many people do you know? Because I've known a bunch. Very, very intelligent, like very sharp people. And they didn't get dumber as they got older. What they got was rigid because they weren't learning new things. They weren't exploring new ideas. They weren't reevaluating their historical viewpoints based on new information. They had just kind of frozen in time. And you see it in our former lines of work too. Like there's a very famous instructor. I don't want to use his name because I don't want to insult the guy because I respect him immensely. There's actually several that I've noticed this in, but this is one that I know personally, and you know him. You've trained with me with him, and it's not that he's dumb. He hasn't lost any bit of his sharpness, but he's become so rigid in his thinking that he's just impossible to deal with. And it's like everything is frozen at his peak, and nothing has changed since. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And when I deal with people like that, it's like, okay, cool. Give them the thumbs up. All right. But Yeah.
You know,
Whatever. Do
and
your
like I
thing.
said, I respect this guy immensely. Like the things he's done are amazing. Like he deserves every bit of respect. But that doesn't make me blind to the fact that he's no longer learning. And I
Right.
really think that there is no stasis in nature. Like there's no steady state. You're either improving or degrading. You're either learning or you're degrading. You're either adapting or slowly dying, right? There's no point where you're like, okay, I've got it now. Like it just doesn't work that way
You
with
can't
anything.
stand still.
No. And like we talked about the aging process and like some things, you know, I am not going to be as fast as I was in my 20s. But that doesn't mean I can't be very fast objectively, regardless of age. And the studies with that, like, I mean, there are sprinters in their 70s that didn't even start sprinting until they were in their 50s. That while they may not be able to hang with a world-class sprinter in their 20s, they're outrunning people that aren't sprinters in their 20s easily. You know? And I think that's kind of something to hang on to going through all this. Is it's not so much about, it was never really about competition with anybody else anyway.
Right.
It's always about how you can be better than you were before.
And go to show you how you adapt and you adjust. The way I grip a pistol in the last year, I've actually made some changes in the way I grip a pistol with pressure here and relaxation because I notice when I really want to rip a run, in order for me to have a good run, I have to relax and
Yep.
literally not think about the run.
Oh, and that has always been my demon with shooting. You know that. But
Yeah.
it's amazing how much more relaxed behind the gun I can get now. You know, like when I'm really like, I wouldn't do this in application. I wouldn't do this for a run that counted, whether we're talking competition or a gunfight, right? But in training, on a good day, I can pop off an 11 split here and there,
Oh,
where
that's spicy.
I would have never had the ability to relax enough to do that in the past. Now, I'm saying I can do it on demand, and I'm not saying I can do it in a match setting or in a real world setting. That's not the point. But if I can do it in training, then that makes my 15s and 17s much more comfortable in an applied setting, whether competition or combat. You know?
Well, you talking about point 11. I can actually now, it was a mental thing with me. All of my splits were, it's mental when you can just go out and shoot 0.20, 0.21 splits every time. It's like you found that comfortable place where you just stay. But I made it a point to stop doing that. I just get out there sometimes and I just try to go as fast as I can and don't care what happens. As long as the bullets end up in the berm or the backstop, not in me, don't care. Just press the trigger, mash it. And I've gotten some good results with that. I've learned to let go sometimes.
You know, and I think that's like exploration process is really important. And it's not, people misunderstand it, right? Like here's a whole nother rabbit hole. Because you and I were kind of early on when it came to bringing competition to law enforcement. It was still very, very unpopular in LE circles when you and I started doing it. Not many cops were doing
Yes.
it. Now it's become
Kilt,
pretty popular.
kilt in the streets.
And I'd like to think that I had at least some small part to play in that increase in popularity, right? But then now we're seeing where it's almost like the pendulum is swinging too far in the other direction. And people are starting to think that that's all there is to gunfighting is fast splits and fast transitions. And that's not really, there's a whole lot more to it than just that. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that those things aren't important. It's like if you're a Muay Thai fighter, is your round kick or your teep ever really good enough? No, you of course want it to be faster and more powerful, right? Or your jab or your cross or your elbows. And it's the same thing with shooting. You know, your draw is never really fast enough. Your splits are never really fast enough. Your transitions are never really precise or fast enough. You always want that improvement. But those things are like hitting the heavy bag. They're not the actual fight. And I think people are kind of losing sight of that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? But
yeah, because you got people who come up with, I like to call it range theatrics because it's like, yeah, I'm going to shoot this drill. well, what's the purpose of the drill? Is the purpose of the drill, speed, balancing speed and accuracy? Is it balancing speed and accuracy and movement? Is it something that gets you out of your comfort zone to make you think? What exactly is the purpose of this drill? You got people just doing drills because they saw it on Instagram and it looked cool.
Well, that's a whole nother too. That going back to our martial arts background, this is very true in classical martial arts, and I think it's becoming true in shooting as well, where everybody confuses the medium with the message. The kata is not a fight. The kata is a mechanism for getting you to learn the physical skills you can then apply to fighting, right?
Right.
The drill isn't the fight either. Like El Presidente isn't a direct representation of a gunfight. You're working on certain things. A bill drill can be a very good engagement sequence in the real world, absolutely. When you're running the bill drill in practice, are you just practicing an engagement sequence blindly? Or are you working on grip on the draw? Are you working on staying relaxed behind the gun and tracking the sights and recoil? Are you working on split times? Are you working on, all these variety of things that you can work on in a bill drill? And I think people miss the point of the drill. The drill is to increase skill in one or more specific areas in your shooting, right? To get a desired training effect. You're trying to get a particular training effect to make you better at something you feel you need to work on. And I think, like you said, what's that?
Go ahead. You say your camera just turned on an odd angle.
Yeah, I may have to edit it and post-production. Okay. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, today is all kinds of new things with this video. So I've never seen it do this before. So I think people, like you said, they look at drills on YouTube and they throw a bunch of them together for a training session, but there's no point in the training session. They're not training like an athlete does. They're not going, okay, today's point is I'm going to work on these 2 or 3 weaknesses and maintain the things I'm good at and pick drills that do that. They're just like, hey, this looked cool. I wonder if I can do this as good as such and such on Instagram did.
And the natural inclination is to do the things that you're good at and not the things that you suck at.
Yes, and that's another huge point.
One of the things that I've been doing lately that has actually improved my shooting, not dramatically, but it's going to make everything better. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. I've been able to not look at my shooting, just observe it. There's a difference between looking at something and observing something. So lately, I've noticed that I'm not looking at my shooting anymore. I'm actually observing it. And while observing it, I can make corrections on myself in real time, which is just weird to me because when it was time to shoot, the timer would go off beep and I would just 2, 2, 2, run here 2. And now it's like I'm starting to perceive a lot more of what's going on around me. It's like I got too much tension in my left hand all of a sudden. Why am I over gripping the gun and pushing too hard to the right of the target? That's my left hand. And that's when I started talking to myself about tension in certain spots, relaxation in certain spots. And it's like that book by Brian Enos, Practical Shooting.
I love that book.
Man, that book frustrated the hell out of me. I read that book when I had 2 years on as a cop, and I understood about 1/10 of what the hell he was talking about.
Didn't I turn you onto that book? I thought I did.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you were one of the people that turned me on to that. So I read that book first time in like 2002, 2003, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this dude's weird. And then I read that book around 2008, and I'm like, huh. Maybe this dude's onto something because I understood half of what he was talking about all of a sudden. And now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I can digest 70% of this book and see how it is helpful and see where I have made mistakes. But it's so strange the way he presented the information. It wasn't like it was heretical or anything. He just took me in a different direction mentally than I was ready to go at the time. Because, being a young guy coming out of the military, being a cop in a big city, grip gun, shoot gun, rip it. And he's talking about relaxation, being mindful, and I get it now that I've actually tried to learn how to meditate, which is just maddening. I don't know how people I'm trying to get better at it, but man, it's work.
Okay, so I got a couple thoughts here, right? And I'm going to give a plug to an app that doesn't even know I exist, okay? Because I know you've got Ace, so you got the MetaQuest.
Yes.
There is a meditation app in there called Trip that is, yep, TRIPP, I believe. And it's guided meditations, and it is phenomenal. Because I've always had a difficult time meditating. Like, you remember when I lived in the dojo, when I was an Uchidash in the dojo? So one of my jobs as an Uchidash, because I was on afternoons at the police department, was to lead the morning meditation in the morning class. So I had to be there at 6 a.m. and meditate for 30 minutes and then lead an hour and a half class in the morning. And I had such a hard time getting in a meditative state without falling asleep. I got really good at sleeping in Seiza, like sleeping kneeling with my back straight, where nobody could tell. And it was just difficult for me to do it, right? But I think meditation has got a lot of benefits in a lot of areas of life, both skill development, application of skill, like actually showing your true level of skill and application under stress, and just benefits for you as a person, benefits for you mentally and emotionally as well. So I've been really working hard on getting into it again the last couple of years. And I found this app like a year ago, and it's really helping, man. It's phenomenal. You should definitely give it a try, without a doubt.
Now, you say you were asleep. One thing I've learned since I started doing this meditation thing, and there have been times where I thought I had fallen asleep, but I didn't. I talk to people who are good at meditating. They call it clicking out. It's where you all
that's a different thing. I was well and truly asleep.
Okay.
My sensei used to throw his sandals at me when he'd walk in and could tell I was asleep.
Yeah. I had a couple of those situations where they call it clicking out, where I'm just sitting there and I'm trying to meditate. Then all of a sudden, it's like, what just happened? And you look around, 10 minutes had gone by.
Yeah, but that just means you were deep in the state.
Right. And I was, I was asleep.
No, I was straight up dreaming.
Yeah, well, yeah. You violated.
So, but going back to the mindfulness bit, right? Like, there's a reason why everybody from Musashi to, the Western fencing masters with their manuscripts, right, from the Italian and the German schools of longsword, to Gichin Funakoshi or Jigoro Kano, like all those guys have talked about it because it's so important. And I think it is the key to effective practice, is being able to truly be mindful, like really be aware, just settling into being that observer in your head, like you talked about.
Yeah.
You're just kind of along for the ride, but you're seeing everything that happens and feeling everything that happens. So that after the fact, you can go, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. And you program that subconscious supercomputer we all have with the right data, and it learns to make it happen. And if I could have really mastered that as a young man, instead of just giving it lip service because all my martial arts instructors told me it was important,
right,
I could have been so much better so much sooner than I was.
Right. If only you had trusted them, if you think about it, because they told you this is the important thing. But in your young testosterone fueled alpha male brain, you thought throwing a devastating punch or a good kick was the main thing.
And it's really not.
No.
Like some of the best fighters I've known, like I'll tell you a story, and I've talked about this guy before on the podcast, but when I was a teenager doing, Japanese karate way back in the day, because remember, it wasn't like karate is now. Like it wasn't a thing for kids. It was like a rough and tumble thing for adults that fought, and I couldn't touch this guy. And it would drive me crazy. And I couldn't understand it because I was younger, faster, and had better technique than him. And I couldn't touch him. You know why I couldn't touch him?
Why?
Because he had that awareness. He was right in that state, that mindfulness state, that Zen state that everybody talks about. So he just saw everything coming and could counter it before it happened. And I was too busy trying to make things happen.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned with this meditation thing is it's a great way to enhance your intuition.
Yes.
And
Well, think about it. What is intuition? Intuition is your subconscious picking up on data and processing it faster and more effectively than your conscious mind can do.
yeah,
So if you've learned to listen to your subconscious, then of course your intuition is going to be better because
yeah,
you're allowing it to tell you what it knows. And honestly, like I've been doing a lot of stuff with Tony Blauer lately. Just phenomenal stuff. Have you ever done any of the spear stuff?
no, but I've always wanted to try one of his classes when somebody showed me just the basically how you make a triangle
Yeah.
and with your arms, and that was just the most mind-blowing thing to me. Where I've used that to cut through crowds of people like a snowplow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm doing one of his certification classes right now, and it's amazingly good stuff, right? But he talks a lot about intuition and pre-attack cues and being aware of your surroundings and all the awareness you have to be safe. And he brings up a really good point that a lot of other people bring up too. Like you look at a lot of the social media feeds where people dissect security cam video and dash cam video and talk about what happened in the fight, right?
Right.
The pre-attack cues are always there. They're always
Yes.
there. And people don't pay attention to them. And so many people say after the fact, I thought something was wrong, or I knew something was wrong, or I was afraid this was going to happen, but they didn't listen to it.
No.
And Tony had a great quote on one of the things I just went through for the certification program, where this guy, one of his students got into a fight in like a bar and restaurant, right? And he's talking to Tony about it. And I may not be getting all the details completely right. I don't want to get him wrong and not say that, but it's a good story. And people should really train with Tony because he's phenomenal. But he talks about how this guy got in an argument with the guy that he got in the fight with a week before. And then a week later, the guy sucker punches him. And Tony's quote was, "You had 7 days to be prepared and ready for that. Why weren't you ready?"
Right.
Because he didn't pay attention to the cues.
He didn't think it was coming. One of the problems with people, and I read this book years ago by a guy by the name of Gavin DeBecker called The Gift of Fear.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've
It's a great
recommended
book.
it to other people, but it did nothing for me because the gift of fear, what he was trying to do to train people to be observant and follow their gut. I grew up in the projects. I already had the gift of fear. So I was a subject matter expert. I read that book. I'm like, wait, not everybody knows this? And that just blew my mind. And then when I see people walking around, like when the area where we used to work, the 14th district in Chicago, you're driving down a street called North Avenue towards Milwaukee. You got the little yuppie girls over there. They're coming from out of town, coming from their vacation in Cancun. It's 11:30 at night. They're walking by themselves. They're looking at their cell phone, and all of a sudden, she decides to take a left turn and walk down an alley. And I'm thinking to myself, if I was a 5'4" woman,
Well,
125-pound woman in the alley,
how many assaults happen? I know exactly the alley you're talking about.
ah,
How many assaults do we have to do reports on that happen in that alley right there, right by the train tracks?
and they never saw them because they had their heads in their phone.
Yeah, it was a common thing, and
Yep.
it wasn't even that dark of an alley.
No, it was well lit because you had so many people using it. It was very well lit, but you still got the shadows, and you got the creatures that dwell in shadow, and you have to be on guard for them.
Good. That was such an interesting place to work because, so if anybody's from Chicago or has been to Chicago, we're talking about like Bucktown, Wicker Park, Logan Square, that area, right? That was our neighborhood. Humboldt Park too. That was the really bad part of the district. So it was gentrifying at the time we worked it. So you had like these artistic kind of hipster types moving in, but it was still a lot of gangs and a lot of crime then. It's since gentrified a lot more. But we always had this like interesting intersection between the clueless kids that were trying to live the hip artistic lifestyle and the gangbangers who've been running that neighborhood for decades. And it just made for a lot of interesting work as a cop.
Yeah, definitely. Because here it is, you got a guy who just spent $750K on his new house, and he's next door to the guy whose parents bought it in 1966 for $12,000, this person's like working in finance, and his next door neighbor is just getting out of prison for the second time, and he's only 23 years old.
You know what's funny? Did you know that Les Gismartoni, Mr. Les Pepperoni, lived in Humboldt Park when we worked there?
Yeah, you told me that. I was like, wait, what?
That's when he bought his first gun.
Yeah, I had no clue until years later.
Which just shows that he had the gift of fear because he decided to buy a gun because he moved into Humboldt Park. I don't blame him. Oh, man. We had, so for everybody listening, Vince and I were partners on a plainclothes gang unit at the district level in Chicago. And the district we worked in had the widest variety of gangs in the entire city. Like it had the most different number of gangs in conflict in the entire city.
Yeah.
And we were partners for what? 3 years, 2 years?
Yeah, something like that.
And we basically lived an 80s action movie, except we had paperwork to write. That was the only difference. If you had shown...
Prince Seagal shot part of Above the Law where we worked.
Oh, that was the district. He worked out of the station we worked out of. Yeah. Yeah, that was the 14th district.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have seen Above the Law, if Steve had to write paperwork, that was the life we lived.
Yeah.
If he'd had to write a report, that was the only difference.
Yeah, interesting times, but it was completely different back then. People expected the police to show up and do something.
Yes.
And we did.
We did. And like, I'm proud of the fact that we were never bullies, because there were some people we worked with that were bullies.
Yes.
And I never wanted to be that. And that was wrong. But you and I, how many times do you think we put hands on people in those 3 years?
Well, it was a few times, but every time we did, strangely enough, the people we arrested that we had to put our hands on, they'd sit there and they're like, yeah, I had it coming.
Yeah. That's because also it wasn't personal for us.
Right.
It was just business.
And, imagine their surprise. Here it is. We had to put hands on them. You're in the station now, hooked to the wall. A few minutes later, you go in after a while, you're doing some paperwork. It's like, all right, we're waiting on the state's attorney to call back. You smoke? Like, yeah. You got any cigarettes on you? No. It's like, all right, I'll get you a couple cigarettes. Then you get them a bag of chips and a pop from the little store that we got in the TAC office, and you sit them down. And next thing you know, you got no problems with these people because, hey, you were just the job that I had at the time.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't personal.
You take your shot in court. You got a good enough shot of getting probation for this because this is Cook County. Nothing serious until it's serious. So, yeah, and people appreciated that. It's amazing how many times that I've actually run across people that I've arrested someplace else.
Oh, yeah.
And it was no issue. And a couple of times they saw me before I saw them. They made it a point to let me know that they waved at me. Hey, what's going on, man? You good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. We good? And they're like, oh yeah, we good. I'm like, okay,
Dude,
cool.
Do you remember Moon?
Yes.
So Moon was a young gangbanger in the 14th district when I was a young cop in the 14th district. Like a decade or more later, maybe 15 years later, we're finally wrapping up that long case on the Latin Kings I did with the FBI. And guess who's on the board as one of the big bosses? Moon.
Moon.
We had both moved up in our respective professions. and I saw him when he got picked up. I was like, yo, man, what's up? He's like, hey, man, how you doing? How you been? I'm doing good, man. How's life treating you? It's good, man. It's good. Like, it was just business. It wasn't,
right.
There was no, and don't get me wrong. There were some guys where we didn't have any respect for them.
Right.
Like Anthony Jones.
We won't say his name. We won't say his name. You said his name.
I said his name. I know. I did it. Is he even still alive?
I think he's dead now, which is fortunate.
Well, I doubt he's going to take umbrage at me using his name, especially because it's a pretty common name. But
yeah,
man, I am so glad that guy had no skill at fighting.
Because if he did, he would have been dangerous. This was a guy who would fight 4 or 5 police officers. and somebody would invariably end up in the hospital. This dude would end up without a mark on him, because I remember the time that our team had to tussle with him, and I'm sitting there watching this man get bludgeoned with a baton with an asp, and not just any asp. It was one of those Magnum asps. Matter of fact, you gave it to the guy who used it. And I'm coming around the bushes. I hear tink, tink, tink. And I'm thinking that, somebody's, just tapping a pole on something, because it's like, what the hell is that? I go around the corner and he's taking blows to the head without flinching from this baton. Then the officer because he's on top of the lieutenant trying to choke him out, which is deadly force. So the officer takes out his SIG P220 stainless, which is 40 ounces unloaded. And with fully loaded, it's about 48. And he cracks him upside the head with that thing. And he goes, ugh, and he just looks at him and says, damn, it's going to be like that. And that's when I ran over and with a flying kick, it's like, you got to go to sleep now. And when I came in and kicked him, he didn't even grunt. He just rolled to the side. We jumped on him, dog piled him, finally got his arms behind his back. Not a mark on him, didn't complain of any injuries. And dude, we had to fight with that dude, and we were throwing blows, elbows, knees, kicks. If anybody would have recorded that, they would have thought that we murdered that man. But when he walked into the station under his own steam and still had to be fought in the lockup.
Yeah, because I'm the one that had to fight him at the lockup.
Right, because we told you, like, hey man, we just had to go with this dude. Your turn.
Oh man, no,
that dude was unreal,
dude. And I got him with a Kimura in the fight, and he wouldn't submit.
No, and I heard that shoulder pop.
So the thing that happens when you don't submit happened, right? And it's like you said, we'll talk about the legality since it's going to be broadcast. That the use of force was appropriate. We're trying to get him under control. If he had submitted, he wouldn't have been injured, right?
Right.
So the shoulder pops, and he just looks at me and goes, "Let's be professional now."
Right. Who gets a dislocated shoulder and just has a conversation at a normal tone?
Yeah, there was something not quite right about that, man.
No, and there's no reason for that man to have been as durable and as strong as he was with a normally functioning amygdala. Ain't no way in hell.
No.
Because the punishment that we gave him that night when we was trying to get his ass in custody, just going in there to lock up his nephew for a shooting, that dude fought in that yard. And we were coming up because we were all converging. We were coming from different places. So I'm walking around casually like, all right, then I hear all of the tink, 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 tink. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Go around the bushes. And it's like, this dude's taking shots to the head, not even responding. This is deadly force. And he's taking shots from an asp. No effect. When he took a shot from that 220, he just paused and looked at the officer like, damn. It's going to be like that. Then he hit him again. That's when I came up with a kick. And he went to the side. And the person that he was on top of, the lieutenant, was 6 foot, 230 pounds. The guy that was standing there hitting him with a gun used to be a power lifter back in the 70s and 80s. He got like max rep benches in the 600, squatting 700, deadlifting 600. So he wasn't fighting.
And Marvin, long-term martial artist, built like a polar bear. Like literally like a polar bear. Like he made you and I look petite.
Marvin was a big hillbilly, which is exactly what he was. A big old galoot. He was what, like 6'3", 6'4", built like a refrigerator. So
he was have you ever seen The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Yes.
He was built like Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. With those big old meaty hands. Oh man, that one time that guy called himself going to sucker punch. I forgot who was going to sucker punch. And Marvin saw it coming. And just as he drew back and that punch started going out, that slap came in. Wow. His feet left the ground and he was like completely horizontal in midair for about a second and a half. He just paused and just dropped.
Well, Marv had hands like canned hams.
Yeah.
Like like I'm a pretty big dude, like, and I'm built like an orangutan. Like my hands look like flippers. My thumbs don't oppose, right? I am positively petite next to Marv.
Yeah.
Marv made me look scrawny, without a doubt.
Yeah, but just think about how diabolical that team was before us. They had some dudes on that team that were there were some serious street cops, man. Everybody knew them, and you never heard them on the radio, but you'd always see them in the station. It's like, yeah, one of the guys that I learned to really, really emulate was, won't say his last name, but Sergeant Major. He was a sergeant major in the
Yes.
reserves, and first name Angelo. I sat there. We did a stop on a couple guys because I was still in patrol, and Angelo looked at this guy, and he just walked right up to him. He's like, "What do you want to tell me?" And the guy's like, "What?" He's like, "Hey, man, you're looking at me like you want to talk to somebody about something." Guy's like, "No, I don't want to say nothing." Angelo pulled him to the side, and I pushed the other guys over. I'm standing there in earshot. Angelo talked to this guy, and he gave up 3 shooters, 2 guns, kind of implicated himself in a homicide because they forced him to drive, and talked to this kid, went to his house, talked to his parents, had him sign a consent to search, found the guns, and these people were thanking Angelo profusely for getting those guns out of their house because they had other kids. This dude was remarkable. He would just start talking to people, and next thing you know, but I was young then. Now I know what to look for when somebody wants to talk to you.
Well, but it's not just that. Like this brings up an important point because we've got a million stories about running and gunning, right?
No,
And everybody thinks that's what makes you a good cop, and it is part of it. But just like being fast and accurate is not all there is to being a gunfighter, being able to use your hands and do search warrants and, do hits on a house and all that stuff isn't all there is to being a cop. You're really kind of worthless as a cop if you can't talk to people.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that a lot of younger cops have. Is it's a generational thing. They're great when it comes to technology, but they are bad at interpersonal communication. And you can
And
see that they lack the confidence talking to people a lot of times.
and you've got to be able to, because if you can't talk to people on the street, who's going to tell you who did the crimes?
Now, 30 years ago, you could still be a good cop and not be able to talk to anybody because all you had to do is just crack them upside the head. Slap people around a little bit, they'll give you whatever the hell you asking them for. But those days are done. Hell, those days were done when we were cops.
Yeah. No, and you know what though? I don't think that was ever optimal, to be honest.
No.
Because if you are doing that to someone, and I want to give a little disclaimer here since it's going to be broadcast. We are not advocating that. We're not saying that's what you should do. No. And like I said before, one of the things I'm proudest of about you and me is we were never bullies, right? But the thing about that is they've proven that if you're doing that to somebody, they'll tell you whatever they think you want to hear.
Yeah.
Just
Don't
to make
matter
it
if
stop.
it's legit or not. Yeah.
Yeah, just to make it stop. That's why in military and intelligence circles, torture is out of vogue. I mean, not just because it's ethically wrong, but from a practical standpoint.
Right.
It's also out of vogue because it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And you human beings, a lot of people just talk about humans and just they hate people. And those people are the type of people that really don't like themselves because they don't like other humans. They rather deal with like pets or something. But I think human beings are extremely remarkable because you could meet somebody who you don't think much of, but next thing you know, you got Audie Murphy. There was no indication that Audie Murphy was Audie Murphy before he did what he did. No, same thing with Sergeant York. But then you got those people who are just remarkable human beings who would just figure things out. They sit there and listen, and next thing you know, they're talking to people, and bang, they got everything.
That's also something that I learned from both my time as a cop and my time in the military is just how amazing some of the individuals out there are.
Yeah.
Like, and like one of the things I say all the time, and I really mean it, and I've said this a lot, is that my having those dual professions gave me an entry ticket into a world that's like out of something Homer wrote, or, you know, L'Amour to Arthur, or, you know, any of these like classic things with these larger than life characters, right? There's people like that. Look at the guy we're talking about with the baton. That man was nothing if not a larger than life character. You know what I mean?
He was.
Yes, he was. God bless him. I love that guy. Oh,
He
God.
was a Spartan, man.
Yes, he was, without a doubt.
You can see from his physique, he wasn't descended from the Athenians. He was descended from the Spartans, the sons of Hercules, because this dude, when his youth, even in his early 50s, he would grab you and hurt you just by grabbing you. That's how strong he was. And back in the day when the 80s, when he first became a cop, I remember them talking about a complaint that he had because he had stopped some guy. The guy decided he wanted to get out of the car and fight him. So he slapped him because he's like a polar bear. He slaps this dude unconscious. Then some cab driver comes up and he wants to jump in a fight. And he just grabs the guy by his wrist and puts his arm behind his back and cuffs him. Come to find out later, he broke the guy's arm in two places. He broke the tibia and no, not the tibia, but the ulna and the radius. So his complaint, and when they came in to ask him, why'd you break this guy's arm? He's like, well, it wasn't deliberate. And besides, you know, the guy's Indian. Them people worship cows. They don't drink milk anyway. And we were all, and we heard this story and we just died laughing.
Oh, man.
It's like, oh, man. It's like, okay, check this out.
So
we're not going to say things like that anymore.
No, we can't say things like that anymore.
No.
So I'm going to tell part of the story about this guy. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I'm going to tell part of it. He used to work a one-man car in Cabrini Green,
which is one of the worst projects in the history of the United States.
Yeah, it's gone now, but it was literally the project. Like if you ever watched Hill Street Blues and reruns, or it was just bad. So he's on the third floor in Cabrini Green, and this guy, and he's by himself, one-man car, nobody else with him, and he's on a balcony on the third floor. And this guy goes, if you didn't have that badge and gun, you'd be afraid to fight me. You know, rougher words than that, but that was the gist of it.
Right.
So the guy we're talking about takes off his gun belt and gives it to some 16-year-old kid who's standing there and goes, here, hold this.
Right.
So this poor 16-year-old kid is holding this gun belt, just shaking in fear, wondering what's coming next. Our guy deals with the guy that said that and looks at the kid and goes, give me my stuff back. And the kid's like shaking his head of his stuff back. Like, I mean, talk about larger than life. Like that's not the kind of thing people think really happens. I think that's something that only happens in movies, but that stuff really happens.
Listen, he was a dude that you could give him a building and a projects and everything would be cool. And the reason everything would be cool is because despite him having that the goon mystique, he would be the first one to talk to you. Yes. And that's what he did mainly. And that's the thing that really surprised me about him and made me respect him all the more. Because, this dude was a goon, but he only dealt with you when he had to. He only put hands on you when he absolutely needed to. But he spent more time talking to people than anything else. And I got to say, it was good for me to work with him because I was just like, let's go. I'm looking for the crime. And this dude would sit there and talk to people. And next thing you know, some old lady was like, well, yeah, I know you guys been talking to me for a while and you calmed me down and I appreciate you coming by, but you need to check out with such and such and so-and-so. And it was like, what's it, such and such and so-and-so? Next thing you know, it's like, we calling the gang office. It's like, hey, man.
Well, that goes back,
this and this.
That goes back to what we were talking about, right? Like he was a good cop because he could talk to people.
Right. And he made me better because I actually started listening.
And for all of his larger than life persona, which was larger than life, for all of his physical toughness, he was also empathetic and fair.
Very.
He never treated anybody badly. He only did things that he needed to do. If it didn't need to get done, he wouldn't do it.
And I realized he was that empathetic because he had a hard upbringing, and he was basically a responsible adult at a very young age because his home life wasn't the best. It was
Yeah.
chaotic. And he got out in the world. He was working. He worked from the time I think he was 12, 13 years old. Then he finally got with the police department, and he got with the police department because it was a bunch of people that he used to work out with at the gym. It's like, man, you need to be a cop because you're lifting all these weights. You know how to take care of yourself. That's all you needed to do back in the day. Is you lift weights and know how to take care of yourself. You know how to box. You could be a cop. And nowadays, I don't know where the hell they're getting cops from because they used to want to recruit from the military, and now it's like they're bringing in people who got advanced degrees in gender studies that can't take a punch.
Kind of to tie this back around into things, right? Like these are the experiences that let you understand what you're training for. I think a lot of times the bosses, whether in the military or the police department, don't understand what the training is really there to do, really there to accomplish. You know what I mean? And like, remember that thesis I did for my master's program where I talked about how most bad uses of force, whether they look bad or they actually really are bad, come about because the officer's not sufficiently trained, so they don't have confidence in getting through the situation.
Yes.
And back in the day when you got guys like him, because that guy had confidence he could handle the fight with good reason.
Yeah.
So it enabled
Because he'd
him
been
to be
fighting
empathetic.
since he was a kid.
Yeah, it enabled him to be empathetic. It enabled him to talk to people and not take it to that notch because he knew if it happened, he could handle it. He wasn't afraid. And I think that a lot of this stuff comes from fear. A lot of what we see that looks like a bad use of force, whether it's a bad shooting or, putting hands on somebody as a cop that's bad, or some of the stuff you see in the military.
It's
a lot of it, I
definitely
think,
fear.
yeah, it's overreaction to the situation because you're afraid you don't have the capability to get through it.
Yeah, and my thing is, I remember when I graduated from the academy, and the police academy was the most structured firearms training I've had with a pistol. I was a machine gunner in the army. So they're like, here you go, kid, take this 45. And I'm like, the hell am I going to do with a 45? I got a machine gun. Well, it's in case the machine gun goes down. I'm like, if the combat's that severe where the machine gun goes down, then I'll be able to pick up a rifle off a body, won't I? And they're like, shut up, you're carrying a 45 anyway. I'm like, okay. But after I got out of the academy, I I knew I wasn't ready. If the bad man jumped out on me, it could go either way. And so I started training as much as I could. Before I even started going to training classes, I would go out and buy a case of ammo once a month, and I would go through that case of ammo. I shoot about 250, 300 rounds every weekend because the police academy was open just doing target shooting. And then some people told me about other types of shooting where, you got the PPC police competitions. I started shooting those. Then I found out about USPSA. Then I started going to training classes and getting better. That's when I started to have more confidence in my abilities. It's like, okay, we're good. We can draw with a double action only pistol out of a security holster and hit the A zone on a target at 7 yards in a second and a half. Okay, I feel a whole lot better now. If I got the gun in my hand as I'm coming up on something, I know I'm going to be okay. But when I first got out of the academy, it was, oh, hell no, I need to go off and train. And I don't understand how these people go out and not get better with their tools. I'm not a defensive tactics guy, but I went to baton classes. I went to handcuff classes. I went to as much training as I could get because I wanted to be better.
Well, you used to come train with me when I had the martial arts
Yeah,
clubs at the academy. You train
yeah,
BJJ. It's not like you don't train.
yeah, yeah. And
So I had a guy tell me when I was new on the job, because I was going to the range every week, and it was one of the guys I was working with. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to embarrass him because he's a good guy. But the two guys I was working with before you.
right.
The older rounder of the two. Really good dude though. But he actually looked at me and he goes, I don't want to go shoot every week. I'll wear out my gun. It's like, that's really not the right way to think about it.
It's like not wanting to drive your car because you're putting wear on your tires.
Well, if you think about it, most gun guys are like sports car guys or antique car guys. They don't really drive them. They bring them out every other Sunday for, the ride down to the Dairy Queen to show them off to all the other guys that own nice cars.
Yeah.
And they don't really go to the track. They don't, go to the drag strip. Same thing with gun guys. How many gun guys, that have a million really cool guns in the safe, but don't really shoot them that much?
Yeah.
We're the weird ones. We're the weird ones,
Yeah. But my whole thing was, I'm not ready. I know I suck. And somebody's going to kick my ass. I need to get better. And what's funny is that mentality that old school cops had. Well, I'm not paying for training. If the department wants me to to have training, they should train me. And I'm like, hey, dude, this is your life. You spend your money on what you think is important. I thought training was important. I thought being able to, draw this pension, that's the goal. Get to the end, and you've done your job so well, they give you a check to stay home. That's what I was looking forward to. And you can't get that
is
dead.
winning. That is winning, by the way. Speaking as a fellow retiree. So
outliving your enemies.
Here's a geek reference for those of the people out there that are like us. If you watch the first episode of The Mandalorian, the very first one, what's the first thing he does when he gets his payday from that bounty? He upgrades his armor and buys another weapon.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing he does. He takes part of that money and makes himself better at his job.
Yeah, this is the way.
This is the way.
He didn't spend it on hookers and blow. He spent it on gear.
But I'm sure he didn't spend all of it on that. But still, my point's still valid, I think. You got to eat. You got to eat.
Yeah, gotta eat. But yeah, he spent it on making his situation better. And not enough people think about doing that.
No.
And I'm looking at the current, I swear, man, I've seen so many female officers that are coming on the job now that are 5'2" and under. And it's like, holy hell, we're just hiring dwarves now. It's like
and
they're
I'm not
5'2" and under.
I'm not saying you can't have a good cop that's that size, but it's like people lose sight of the fact, and I used to say this all the time, and the brass would get mad at me. But when I was training people, whether it was at the academy or whether I was training people through SWAT or, any of the different gigs I had in training on the department, I used to always look at people and go, regardless of your position on the job, you wear a gun and have been entrusted by society to use that firearm in service of the social contract. That makes you a gunfighter. Part of your job description is gunfighter. Doesn't matter if you work at headquarters, doesn't matter if you're in the CAPS office, doesn't matter, community policing, for those of you that don't know. Doesn't matter. Part of your job is gunfighter.
Yeah.
And while not everybody needs the same level of skill at that, I mean, I'm not expecting somebody who works in personnel to be the same kind of shooter that somebody that's on SWAT is. That's not my point, but they should be conversant and comfortable with that tool and able to.
They should be competent. They should be competent. And there are just entirely too many people that don't understand the manual of arms. It's like, okay, here you got a gun. What are the steps to making this thing fire? Feed, chamber, lock, fire, unlock, extract, eject. That's it. And basic rules of firearm safety. I don't think you should be able to carry a gun if you don't know the basic rules of firearm safety. If you can articulate those rules, I'll wake you up 3 o'clock in the morning. Basic rules of firearm safety, go. Treat all weapons as if they're loaded. And you don't start off like that, you shouldn't be carrying a gun. Yeah, I understand the Second Amendment. It is your God-given right. However, rights come with responsibilities. And if you don't know the basic rules of firearm safety, you're irresponsible with a firearm. And that makes you detrimental to society. Stop being a detriment, be value added.
And there's a difference between the right to have a firearm, which I've become very much a Second Amendment absolutist. I think everybody should have the right to have a firearm.
Yeah.
Carrying a firearm professionally is a step above and beyond simply owning a firearm because that's your right.
Yes. Yes.
So if you're carrying a gun for a living, you better be good with that tool, at least competent, like we said.
And it shouldn't be too much to ask that the average police officer go out and shoot 3 classifiers and you're C class. Cool. Which is better than a lot of officers running around now.
Yeah.
Those dudes you see on the range who are shooting C class and basically going out there in the stages, pausing, reloading in the wrong place, bad setup. You know what? Those C class guys are still better than 70% of cops in America.
Well, and also
which
still
is sad.
still better than 90% of the human race.
True.
That is one of those.
Go ahead.
That's one of the traps I think people fall into is, especially cops and soldiers. A lot of times we don't win because we're good. We win because the other guys are really bad.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing to conflate.
That's a couple things that we used to talk about in that car that we treated like a confessional. What was said in that car never left that car. But I think this is one of the things that we can talk about that was in that car. One, Heraclitus was right when he said of 100 men in combat, 80 shouldn't even be there. That's the average police department. I used to be generous and say that half the officers running around out there shouldn't be carrying guns. But yeah, a bare minimum, 60% of police should be like the Bobbies. You should have a stick, a taser, a whistle, some OC, and you handle jobs that are not heated jobs like robbery in progress, things of that nature. Because just everybody running around with a gun, not everybody's doing what they should with those firearms.
Well, I remember when Illinois lost the lawsuit and concealed carry became legal, and they had to put the process in for making people instructors. And if you had law enforcement experience, you could just apply and be an instructor, basically. Yeah. I saw some people that I knew, and they're applying to teach concealed carry, and I'm like, first off, why are you doing this? You don't even like shooting. And second, just because you've worn a gun every day, like a fashion accessory for the last 15 years, doesn't mean you actually know what you're doing with it. That's not 15 years of experience with guns, except for just how much it weighs on your hip.
You're wearing a gun. Look, I'm wearing a watch. That doesn't make me a Time Lord. I'm not Doctor Who, even though the new one's black.
Is he really? I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either because I stopped watching halfway through Peter Capaldi's run because, I will admit I am a nerd. I'm wearing a Batman shirt, unironically. But yeah, Peter Capaldi, I got halfway through his run and it was like, I don't like my Doctor Who as an angry old man. So next thing you know, they bring in some lady. Well, I didn't watch Capaldi, so I'm not watching the lady. Now they brought in a black guy. And I'm like, I'm not watching Doctor Who because I don't know what I'm getting. My favorite Doctor Who of all time, Tom Baker, 17-foot scarf. That was my guy. That's when I jumped on that train. But,
he wore rainbows before it was popular and woke.
Right. But yeah, I was loving that show, and it's like, man, I still watch the first 6 seasons because Eccleston and Tennant and Matt. What was the other Matt? I forgot his name. Oh well, but yeah.
Yeah, the only ones I really watched were Baker. That was the only ones I really watched, and I watched those as a kid. Never really watched them as an adult.
Yeah, I got into them as a kid, and when they rebooted it back in I think 2002, 2003, that's when I jumped on again. But I've got, believe it or not, when I was in Afghanistan, somebody showed up with all of the Doctor Who episodes on their hard drive. So of course I had to dump that all on my hard drive. I still got all of those movies from Afghanistan.
I finally purged all that stuff just the other day. I was going through and cleaning up my desktop, and I'm finally like, I don't need these anymore. I just stream everything now. That's why Gen X is so angry. You know that, right?
What?
We had cassette tapes and albums. Then we had to buy CDs. Then by the time we got everything on CD, we had to start downloading it on LimeWire. And now everything is streaming. We have gone through 6 different ways of keeping our music.
Yeah. Let's see. And the way we used to be honest, I didn't buy a CD player until 93 because I thought they were a fad. First time I saw one was 87. I didn't get one until 93 because I thought it was a fad. Because I remember Laserdisc player. I remember the VCR when it came out, and you had the VHS and the Beta, and Beta was better, but everybody went with VHS and the laser disc players and all of that other technology that's sitting in somebody's garage. So yeah, I survived 8-track tapes, cassette tapes, CDs, Laserdisc, and now we're streaming. But I still have some of the movies that I have on that hard drive. I'm going to keep on that hard drive. Like I have all of Akira Kurosawa's movies on there, and I've still got the Lone Wolf and Cub series on there. So I'm definitely keeping all of those.
You know, I
just watched them all again recently.
I still remember listening to my dad's 8-track of Johnny Cash, and one of the tracks skipped in the middle of was it Big Bad John? It was one of those, like one of the big songs. It was like cut in half by the track separation. I'm like, come on, man, really? You couldn't make this fit better somehow?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, those used to skip when you hit bumps hard enough. And being in Chicago, we like pothole capital of America, so those things are always skipping.
Well, that's just because the Democratic Party runs Chicago, so road construction is just a scam.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I remember we had a training location that we were going to designate for the new outdoor range for Chicago PD.
Oh, yeah.
It was a place that we found right next to Waste Management, so we didn't have to worry about disturbing our neighbors. The closest residence from Chicago was a mile away. The closest residence in the suburb was 3/4 of a mile away. It was 300 yards wide from east to west, 500 yards long from north to south. We had construction companies that would have dropped dirt for free for us there because it was costing them money to haul it up to Michigan. We had CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, Metra, which is the commuter rail, and Amtrak ready to just give us their old railroad ties to drop off there. And we had one of our officers that worked for us. He was a CB in the reserves. And instead of them going down to Fort Polk for 2 weeks, they could have done the work here for free. We could have had that range built for free. It had concrete pads out there, so we could have put a steel building already. It had electricity running through it. It had a fire hydrant that was sitting there amongst all of the vacant stuff. So we could have built a training facility out there, dirt cheap. And the city said no. Ostensibly, the reason was that somebody found a bald eagle's nest, but nobody's seen that bald eagle in 3 years. And the main reason I think they didn't let us have that range is because nobody could figure out how to steal money because we got it done for free.
Probably. We got in trouble
on city that works.
We got in trouble for building our own shoot house because the Carpenters Union got mad. But if we'd waited on the Carpenters Union, it would have been 3 years.
Yeah. And these are the stumbling blocks that they put your way for training. I don't understand why they don't actually want to train people, because it gives your officers more confidence and it makes them more effective, and you'll have less issues with inappropriate use of force than if you don't train them. I look at there's a unit that just looks at body camera footage, right? So this unit looked at body camera footage and was horrified by the conduct of a couple of the tactical teams. These are plainclothes officers who work district level crime suppression. I think in New York, if you ever know anybody from New York or NYPD, they call it anti-crime, where you get to run around in civilian dress, suppressing crime and things of that nature. Well, they're looking at these guys and they're seeing incident after incident after incident of crossfire with people as far as offenders between officers. And when they stop a car and everybody jumps out, and what do? They create a circular firing squad around the car. So we were coming up with training proposals to kind of mitigate a lot of this stuff that these people are seeing. So far, I've submitted 3 proposals for classes that I wanted to run that I was going to write up, and I've heard nothing back in weeks once I submitted these proposals. So now we're taking a wait and see attitude, because when the carbine program first got started with CPD, it got started on a fluke. I went to West Point in 2006 and did their firearms instructors class out there. It was 2 weeks. First week was pistol, second week was carbine, And no, the second week was shotgun and subgun, because people were still running MP5s and stuff back then. And I think the FBI was moving to UMPs. We're using UMPs in 40. And then I went back out there for the carbine instructors class in 07. When I came back, Steve Sesso, he was the sergeant at the time, he's like, write up some lesson plans for a carbine program. And I just kind of laughed. I'm like, wow, we're never going to be able to carry him in Chicago. He's like, well, just humor me, write them up anyway. So I wrote up a syllabus, wrote up lesson plans. The original lesson plans were for a 2-day course for former military, 3-day course for people who had never been trained in a weapon system before. Then, sure enough, it gets approved on a just instantly, where they tell me, hey, come in for a meeting on Thursday. And they're like, all right, the detail that you're working has been canceled. You're going to be doing a carbine program. And I said, sure, I'm going to be doing a carbine program. Go talk to Ray Hamilton, the superintendent's chief of staff. It was Jody Weiss at the time. And he's like, go to the armory, get this many thousand rounds of ammo, pick up these Lesso rifles, and you're going to run a class on Monday. And this was Friday. And I had the lesson plans and I had the syllabus.
Wasn't I in that class? Or was I in your second class?
I believe you were in, I think you might have been in the first class.
I think I was in the first class, yeah.
Yeah. And you showed up and you killed your rifle and you had to send it off to get fixed because you're you. I remember we used to call you the hands of the devil because you would touch something and inexplicably it would be broken. So yeah, that happened to your rifle. But in just a few days' time, we went from having no carbine program to a carbine program. I was working a side gig where I'm just being security at this foundry that was shut down. And I just sat there at the gate in my truck and I just made PowerPoints for day 1, day 2. Then we were on the range doing live fire day 3, day 4, then stuff for day 5. And come to find out that going to these meetings, it was like a political minefield. When we first got those rifles out in the field, we couldn't have 30-round mags because they looked too aggressive. It's a banana clip. It's a 30-round box magazine. And it's only shaped that way so it can feed reliably. How about we just calm down? But there was so much input. And come to find out, the only reason that we have a carbine program in Chicago is not because of making it safer for the citizenry, giving officers a standoff weapon that they could use. It was because Chicago couldn't get summits like NATO, the G8, the G10, the G20. These world conferences, you have to have a certain amount of people that are qualified in a lot of things like crowd control and also rifles. And Chicago had none of that at the time. That's why they had to jump out of their hind parts and get a carbine program in place, and also send us down there to Alabama to get all that crowd control training.
Yeah, that whole SRT program with the crowd control stuff, where you had guys from every district. Same reason.
Yep. And where'd that go? It went away. Then years ago, after what was that? Ferguson, when they were protesting in downtown Chicago, they brought us in and tried to make us a field force. And people were like, we haven't been trained on this. We're not doing this. So they sent us out there wearing our little black BDUs like we're modern day ninjas and just had us stand around because they didn't train us to actually go out there and control the crowds, which they're not doing now. And seems strange that everybody's expecting civil unrest. You think somebody would start training to deal with civil unrest, right?
Oh, so I got a story. I know we told a few war stories this episode, but this one's got to be told because this is me getting in trouble again. So big protests downtown. There was this big event during the protest, they called it the Battle of Michigan Avenue. Right, it was right by the bridge on Michigan Avenue when the protesters kind of overran the lines of the cops and everything got all messed up. And I had my guys from organized crime, and we were out there in our black BDUs. You know, we had our little riot shields and our batons and stuff. And I get on the bulwark, whatever you want to call it. It's not really a handrail because it's too tall, but you know, the rails on the side of the Michigan Avenue Bridge. They got like those concrete posts right there. So I hop up there and I stand on one of the posts and I scream out the speech from 300, This is where we hold them, boys. This is where they die. Take from them everything and give them nothing. On these shields. And I start banging my shield with a baton. So not only my team, but all the other teams from organized crime start banging their shields with a baton. And my boss goes, Matt, come here. I spent the rest of those protests sitting in a van doing nothing.
That'll learn you. Hey, if it was your plan to sitting there and do nothing, mission accomplished. But if you actually wanted to get out there and do your job, well, yeah, I know you. You're like the border collie. It's like you're sitting there with your mouth open, tongue hanging out, panting because you want to get at it.
You know, we have.
Remember, I worked with you.
Oh, man. So we worked together actually the first time before you were off probation. I remember this.
Yeah, I remember that night. And people were like, yeah, we're going to put you with Little because, you know, he's a military guy. You're a military guy. So I get my stuff. We're out in the parking lot. And you're like, you're off probation, right? And I'm like, no, it's just my second training cycle. And you just slam on the brakes. You look at me like you're offended. And what the hell they put you with me for? And that's when I thought, I'm about to get fired. And sure enough, it's like you and the couple of the other guys, I ain't saying no names, but they were like young guys with like 2-3 years on the job. And they were like, we're going to get out here and we're going to be the police. And they were the police. And they handled business. But still being a young guy, I'm like, okay, what the hell just happened? Like we get there and there's a fight. It's like, what do we do now? We leave because he lost and he's under arrest now. I'm like, oh, okay, so everything's good. Like, yes. That was the thing, because that one night, like you said with Frank, when the guy challenged Frank to a fight. Well, one night out there, guy challenged another guy to a fight. Like, you didn't have that gun, so he took his mag out his pistol, took the round out of the chamber, threw the pistol in the grass off his body armor. And I'm like looking around like, this is about to go down. And sure enough, they started thumping and he thumped that dude. And after the fight was over with, put his stuff back on, sat down with the dude on his porch. It's like, look, man, we've been here twice tonight. If we come back, you going to jail. You already lost the fight. Let's just chill right now. Dude was like, all right. They actually shook hands on it and walked away. That's how dudes used to be back in the day. They had a code, because we were talking about people with a code. Like one of our favorites, you were talking about Moon earlier, Bundy.
Oh, Bundy. I love Bundy, man.
Bundy was a Latin king through and through. You roll up on Bundy, Bundy's hands just came away from his body. He put his hands up and he just looked like, yeah, what's up? And Bundy knew us. Bundy knew when we stopped him, we were more than likely just stopping him to talk to him, because Bundy was very entertaining. Bundy had a code. And if Bundy was dirty, you'd never know it, because Bundy refused to run. He like, look, man, I'm fat. I ain't got time to be out here being all out of breath and embarrassed trying to run from y'all. I ain't got nothing. 9 times out of 10, you ain't going to catch me with nothing. And he was right. Never caught Bundy with anything.
No, Bundy was smart. So
yes.
my favorite Bundy story is we roll up on him and he's got a sword. You remember this? He's got a straight up, and it's a cheap one. It's like a stainless steel wall hanger, you got at the mall, right? It's like the samurai sword version of a gas station knife at a truck stop, right? And I look at him like, why do you have a sword, Bundy? He goes, yo, man, like super cop, man, I collect them, man. I'm like, really? So do I. We start talking about swords.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, next time they come to do a drive-by on you, man, just bring out the sword. And he goes, man, I ain't no Jedi. The Force ain't with me.
If some of the conversations that you would have with some of these people out there, you realize that all it takes for some of them to have a better life is to get out of there.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's absolutely amazing. And I told some of these dudes, I'm like, look, man, I joined the Army to get the hell out of my neighborhood in Chicago, because I needed a break from all of that nonsense. So the military to me was like, this is heaven. It's like, yeah, it's yelling, yeah, it's screaming, yeah, everybody telling you what to do, but you ain't got to watch your back every 30 seconds. So this was much more conducive to my mental well-being. And I told some of these guys, man, listen, if you got relatives that live somewhere else where nobody knows you, I don't care how boring it is, get the hell out of here for a year, two, go somewhere, do something different. You'll have a different outlook on life. And sure enough, coming back from a shooting conference in Utah, and we stop off at some town in the middle of nowhere, believe it or not, and we stopped off in Wyoming.
Don't you have a statue of you in Utah?
Not a statue, but I generated some goodwill in Utah. But we'll get back to Utah in a minute. And we're sitting down in a restaurant, and I think it was Laramie, Wyoming. And this kid is serving food, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, this dude ain't Mexican, and he ain't Native American. He looks Puerto Rican. And that's just my thinking. He comes over to the table and he starts serving, and I look at his left arm. He's got the Chicago flag on his left forearm. Like, oh, you from Chicago? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what part? He's like, I grew up around such and such and so and so. And I'm like, oh yeah, you live right over there with all those imperial gangsters. And he kind of like looked at me. I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, bro. I know you out here to get away from all that shit, right? It's like I did the same thing when I was young. I got the hell out of Chicago for a while. And so he's working in a restaurant in Laramie, Wyoming. And he just said he ended up out there on a fluke. He just got in the car with some, he started going to, I forgot, one of these junior colleges here, and got him some white friends. And they're like, we're going to drive to Washington State. And he got out at Laramie and was like, no, I'm good here. And that's how he ended up in Laramie, Wyoming. So I'm like, first things first. One, get some white friends. Two, get out the hood.
So there was a kid who was in the Police Explorers program in the 11 district. So, and for the guys who are listening that don't understand this, 11 is the most crime-ridden district in Chicago. Like, it's right up, 7 and 11 are the most crime-ridden districts probably. And 11 is probably the most violent, I would think. 7's pretty violent too, but 11's pretty rough.
I would say it's the most dope sold in the state of Illinois in that district.
It might be the most dope sold in the U.S.
Shit, it might be the Midwest, man.
Yeah, but so anyway, there was this kid, little kind of skinny kid in the Police Explorers program when I was a new sergeant there. I met him right around the time I had lunch with you and got in a shooting right after.
I remember that night.
So I met this kid, and this kid's asking me about stuff, and I'm talking to him, and I didn't really think anything of it. He's like just this little skinny kid, and I'm kind of begrudgingly answering him because I think it's the right thing to do, right, when he's in the station. So then I get to SWAT, and I'm in 11 all the time because of the SWAT training office in 11. And he's a little older, still in the Explorers program, still in school. And he starts coming down to the SWAT offices and just like asking me questions and talking to me. And I'm a little friendlier with him now because he's been coming around for a couple of years, and I'm getting used to him. And I like the kid; he's a nice kid. But I still didn't think that much of it, right? I'm kind of not expecting it to actually amount to anything that I'm being nice to this kid. I'm just doing it because I feel like it's the right thing to do. So fast forward years later, and this kid is on SWAT in Jackson, Mississippi, and contacts me all the time and is just kicking ass in his career.
Nice.
Yeah, he got out and he made something out of himself. He's just a solid young guy. And
Jackson, nice. Jackson is Jackson, Mississippi. My family's from Mississippi, so I've got fond memories of Mississippi, but I ain't living there because that heat will kill you.
But I guess kind of my point with it, yeah, you're right about Mississippi too, the heat. But my point is that I don't think we always know how the way we treat other people reverberates throughout the rest of their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It echoes sometimes, and things we do just because we feel like it's the right thing to do in the moment, even if we're not putting any real emphasis on it or thinking it'll even go anywhere, can make a difference sometimes.
Yeah. And especially, I've learned that, especially in the lives of young men, a lot of young men, if you just spend time talking to them, it's value added, because I've come to realize that old expression, old men for counsel, young men for war. I ain't the war guy. I ain't the war fighter no more. So I'm that old man for counsel. And I like to listen to these young guys talk about some of the issues that they had, because we've been there. We've done that. The same problems that you're having today, we've had some of those problems too, and we survived them. So I'll sit there and talk to them, if they got questions, and I try to shorten their learning curve, because that's the phrase I learned from you: shorten that learning curve, because they're thinking this, and this, and I'm like, hey, dude, you can do this, and you don't even have to mess with that, or this. If this is what you want to do, this is one way that you can go about doing it. So I try to be value added as far as young guys go, because you get guys our age, all they want to do is complain about youngsters and call them stupid. Well, I think anybody under 35 is kind of dumb because the stuff that you do is like, yeah, I know what that is. That's just a lack of experience and your testosterone level. So yeah, I can see
Oh
why you would
yeah.
think that. But as you get older, it's kind of like you hit a certain point in your life as a man where you're not the wolf man anymore. I think Joe Rogan said it best. When you're a young guy, it's like when you feel a change coming on, the full moon's out, and you're like, and when you see women or something like that, or something that you want, it's like you have to have it. But as an older guy, you're like, yeah, I like it, but I like what I got already. You as you get older, you start to realize you don't need as much from other people, because you got the people around you that matter. You don't need to go to the hottest places. You don't need to wear the coolest clothes. I sit back now and think about all of the money I wasted buying clothes to go out, buying drinks, and just partying. But that's the learning curve. You do that enough, you realize I shouldn't have been doing this nonsense in the first place. My time would have been better suited doing other things. And that's the message that I try to I try to convey to younger guys. It's like, yeah, you can go out and get knee walking drunk every night, but what are we learning? Nothing.
Well, and also, like, what is it worth? Is it worth the
Right.
cost?
No.
And I'm not
the
saying there's a
dudes-
huge cost, but like I remember being a young soldier and like spending half the day Saturday on the couch with a hangover. For what?
Yeah.
I could have had just as much fun having a few less drinks and had a productive Saturday instead of wasting a whole day. You know what I mean?
And
Like it's
now I don't even drink. I don't even drink socially. Every now and then when I go out, me and my girl go out, we have a nice dinner or something. I'll see an interesting cocktail on the menu. Yeah, I'll try that. But I've
yeah,
got
but
a bunch of liquor in my house that I haven't touched in years.
but you're savoring the taste when you try that. Like I still enjoy, like I like to sit on the porch and have a nice cigar with friends and sip on some nice bourbon. But it's really the conversation and hanging out with my
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
There's the cigar and the bourbon are there as a ritual and for the taste. It's not there to
Yeah.
get a buzz off the cigar. It's not there to get lit off the alcohol. It's there to enjoy a ritual with my friends and enjoy the taste of it. It's not like
I
you
am
and
no
I,
longer a
man,
drinker.
you and I, oh man, you and I smoked way too many cigars in that squad car,
Yeah. Hot boxing each other.
dude. And then I
Oh,
realized you actually inhaled them.
yeah. That's why I gave my mom like, wait, you're not supposed to? And everybody's like, how the hell are you inhaling cigars? I'm like, I thought that's what you did.
I
But
still remember. I remember looking. It was the middle of a snowstorm, and I remember looking at you in the squad car and going, "Wait, you're doing what?"
I'm like, isn't that what you're supposed to do? And you're like, no, you puff on it. I'm like, well, what the hell is the point of that? I thought they were like cigarettes. You smoke the damn thing. Yeah, you say you smoke cigars, but you just puff on cigars. I actually smoke cigars. That's why I gave up cigars. Because I started waking up in the morning. It's like, whoa, I could use that as spackle. So I gave up the cigars. And as far as alcohol goes, I don't consider myself a drinker anymore because I used to literally drink liquor. Now I sip. I'll sit there with a bourbon because I like bourbon because, well, it's American. So why the hell not? If I'm going to spend money on alcohol, I'm going to spend money on some American hooch and not some foreign stuff. So yeah, I like me a good bourbon. But yeah, I'll sip on it, but I don't do heavy drinking anymore because the juice ain't worth the squeeze, man.
No.
You get a hangover now, it's like getting a surgical procedure. You're gonna be laid up for a couple days.
Yeah, see, I don't really find that to be the case. Here's my theory on this, because everybody talks about it like this. I don't think it's that the hangovers really affect you any more than they used to. Because I remember being a young soldier and being just laid waste by hangovers, right? I think it's that we're older and wiser and we realize it's just dumb to do that to yourself. That's what I honestly think it is. I just think we realize how stupid it is as a behavior and just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. It's kind of like when was the last time you decided to lick a 9-volt battery?
I don't know if I've ever licked a 9-volt battery.
I've licked a few 9-volt batteries. I'm proud that I've never licked a 9-volt battery past the age of 16. Because people would challenge you, I dare you to lick it. Yeah, it sucked, but now what? But then again, now I look at it, people dare me to do stuff. It's like, I dare you to do it. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to respond to my dare? No, I don't care.
You know what? That's a good way to bring this around full circle and wrap it up, because we're at 2 hours already, dude. I can keep talking longer, but I got to get this down to like an editable format.
Right.
I think that goes back to the mindfulness thing, that self-awareness.
Yeah.
You know, we are now self-aware enough to know that their opinion doesn't matter.
It doesn't change me. And
no,
one thing that I learned is I don't care about the opinions of people that I don't care about. Now, I care about your opinion because you've been knowing me for 20 years. So I care about what you think. But some guy that I barely know is like, I don't care your opinion. What is that? That's like sounds that are emanating from a hole in your face. What does that mean to me?
And even like, let's take it a step further, because I do care about your opinion of me. You're one of my best friends.
Yeah.
But
we've got history, so of course I care.
But having said that, if my opinion was in direct opposition to something you felt strongly about, you would still do what you felt strongly about, despite your respect and affection for me, and vice versa.
Absolutely, because you have to live your life and I have to live mine, and we can't live our lives for each other.
No. And that's something I think that's hard to realize as a young person, right?
Yeah.
You know, is that you've got to, you and I both like Stoicism and Zen, right? We talked about it a lot. And this kind of comes down to a lot of the things the Stoics said, right? It's others' opinions of you don't change who you are. It doesn't mean they shouldn't get taken into advisement. Like I respect your opinion. So if you told me something, I would think about it deeply to see how much validity there was to it, to see if it was true or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's two things we shouldn't do with others' opinions. One is follow them blindly, no matter how much we respect the other person. There should always be some critical thinking involved. And two is not disregard them blindly because they're in opposition to us.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, you evaluate it, you look at it, but at the end of the day, the opinion of you is not the important point. It's the truth of what you are and who you are and what you're doing.
Yes.
So like I said, that kind of brings it all the way around to mindfulness again, which is, if I had been better at that sort of thought process when I was younger, life would have been a whole lot easier.
If I had a time machine, I would go back to myself at the age of 25. First thing I would do is walk up and just literally slap the shit out of me. Smack! Pay attention. This is what you need to be doing right now. Go see these people, focus on this. And maybe I wouldn't have a bad back when I'm in my 50s.
You know, I wouldn't change any of my accomplishments.
Oh, no, I just make them better.
Exactly. I would have made them easier to go through.
Yes.
Make it a more streamlined process. None of the things I did professionally would be changed. I would just make it a more efficient path.
And I would have thought more about the process as I went through it, because you think about when you went through Ranger School, did you actually sit back and think about all of the things that you were doing or what was going on around you? Or did you get real selfish and just think about what you had to do?
Wasn't even that, like all the military training, I don't think I started thinking about where I actually was as a person until I was in my 30s. Because
Yeah.
my entire 20s were trying to become something.
Yes.
I wanted to be a Green Beret. I wanted to be a certain level of martial artist. I wanted to be a big city cop. I wanted to, all these things I was trying to become. And there's a danger in that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be driven, because I think there's a need for that to accomplish great things. You kind of have to be a little.
You need that as a young man.
Without that level of intensity, you don't accomplish great things.
No.
But the
need it as a
danger,
young man.
but the danger in that is not enjoying the process.
That's my entire point. There are so many things that I look back on now, and it's like I missed out on a lot because I was just thinking about this small little thing that I was trying to pull from this process, instead of thinking about all of the things that are part of this process that I could have used to make myself better. I went in there, it's like, all right, you can go in here and there's 1,000 items on the shelf and you can have them. So you just run in there and start filling up your arms. It's like, well, if you told me all of this stuff is mine, I can come back and get it at my leisure. That's the questions I ask now. Is all of this mine? Yes. Can I take all of it? Yes. Do I have to take it all now? No. So I can come back anytime I want to get what I need? Yes. Okay. Those are questions that I'll ask now. Whereas back then, I'd have just hauled ass in there, filled up my arms with as much as I could, and ran out. Now it's like, okay, this is mine. I'm going to see where everything is. I'm going to catalog and document all of this stuff and come back and get what I need when I need it. And that's how I should have looked at my life as a young man. But you don't think like that as a young man. It takes experience to get there.
Well, somebody famous said this, that the interesting thing about experience is you only get it after you do what you have to do.
Yeah. Jason Statham in one of those movies, he says, it's like good judgment comes from experience. Where does the experience come from? Bad judgment.
Bad judgment.
Yes. Good judgment comes with experience. And how do you get the experience? You get it because you had bad judgment.
Yep. And on that note, my friend, I should probably wrap this up. So
pleasure talking to you, Matt, as usual.
Always. We got to do this again, because we barely scratched the surface in 2 hours, the things we could talk about.
We can actually sit and have a conversation offline about what we want to talk about and just have our little outline and just hit it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right,
leave no meat on the bone next time.
All right. Say hello to everybody for me and take care, my friend.
Will do. Be safe down there.
All right. I hope everybody else enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Take care.
A rabbit hole or two here and there, but I think it was a great episode, and I will talk to everybody again soon.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.